WESN.
Here is your WESN News on the Hour. I'm Naomi McNish. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. Tragic roadside mishap claims the life of a Princestown man. Ministry mobilizes after severe flooding and landslides. Barrackpore man chops friend in an alcohol-fueled dispute. And domestic violence victim sues state over collapsed assault case. Now for the details. A roadside stop turned fatal for 56-year-old truck driver and mechanic Anil Drake Singh on November 21st near Princestown. Singh, originally from St. Julian Road, stopped to urinate when his van, parked too close to a hidden precipice, shifted as the edge of the road gave way. The vehicle struck Singh, who fell before flipping down a 30-foot landslip. While two friends in the van survived with injuries, Singh later succumbed at the Princestown District Health Facility. His sister, Anela, recalled her shock, saying Singh was initially responsive but complained of breathing difficulties before becoming unresponsive. She has called for caution signs to prevent future accidents. Barrackpore police are investigating. Singh's funeral is set for November 26th. The Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government has launched a coordinated response to flooding and landslides caused by heavy rainfall from a low level through on November 23rd. The bad weather triggered significant street flooding, fallen trees and landslides, particularly in northern Trinidad. Areas like Upper La Puerta Avenue, La Saiva Road and Long Circular Road saw blocked roads and property damage. Disaster management teams, along with agencies like CPEP and the fire service, have been working to clear roads and assess damage, with cleanup efforts continuing in locations such as Carenage, PT Valley and Crystal Stream. The ministry urged residents to stay vigilant and report issues to local corporations. A drinking session turned violent in Barrackpore on November 20th, leaving a 23-year-old man hospitalized with severe injuries. Police say the incident occurred around 10 p.m. at the home of a 52-year-old man on Kanai Road North. An argument over alcohol escalated, leading the older man to attack his friend with a cutlass, inflicting multiple wounds to his legs, chest and abdomen. The victim returned home despite his injuries, while the attacker called police, confessed and handed over the weapon. He also guided officers to the victim's home, where they found him in bed and rushed him to the San Fernando General Hospital. The victim remains hospitalized and PC Cyrus is investigating. A domestic violence survivor has filed a constitutional claim against the state, alleging police and prosecutorial failures led to the dismissal of assault charges against her ex-fiancé, violating her fundamental rights. The case, assigned to Justice Carol Gobin, will be heard on December 11th. The woman, who remains anonymous for safety reasons, claims the police prosecutor missed multiple court hearings, causing the case's collapse in May 2023. She accuses the state of failing to ensure accountability for such lapses, leaving victims without justice. The victim alleges her ex-fiancé assaulted her and her mother in 2022 during a child handover. She said delays, procedural missteps, and insensitive questioning by police compounded her trauma. This case comes amidst widespread criticism of the criminal justice system's handling of domestic violence cases and calls for stricter enforcement to prevent procedural failures. The claimant seeks damages and declarations of constitutional violations. Well, that's news to the hour on WESN. I'm Naomi McNish. Thanks for watching.
WESN.
This holiday season, bring the magic of Christmas home with WESN's Joy of Christmas. Relive timeless classics from the laughter to the heartwarming moments that make the season unforgettable.
Hey, like the lamp, not the rat, like the lamp, not the rat!
Santa's coming to town!
Ah! Oh my God!
Oh, poor baby.
Experience the joy of WESN special productions, crafted to bring you new stories and cherished memories. This year, let WESN bring the joy of Christmas to your home.
Merry Christmas, Charlie Brown!
Catch the spirit, catch the joy.
Anchors away. May the force be with you.
Only on WESN, your content capital.
WESN.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to AM Prime on WESN Content Capital. I'm Keaton Shaw. Thank you very much for joining us for this edition of the program. We hope all is well with you, and we hope that you're keeping well. To start off this morning's edition of the program, we have a couple of dates to share with you. Sorry, updates, if what slipped me there for a moment. This, of course, following quite a number of news stories within the last week that impacts, of course, the Caribbean, but the whole world. The first of which was the second ever CARICOM India Summit, which took place in Ghana last week. And now there was news coming out in respect to CARICOM agreements, which we can get into a bit later on. But the world was focused on the fact that India, or in this specific case, the Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi, was only the second sitting leader of India to visit Ghana in 56 years. And there were questions as to exactly why or how was this taking place. Now, journalists around the world were reporting in as per the meetings and as per the conversations. And of course, there was a lot of diplomatic exchanges as well. To a certain extent, India pitched itself to Ghana. Well, the argument suggests that it surrounds India in its stage or need for more oil and natural gas supplies and sources, is now extending its arms to its Caribbean partners. So let's start off this morning's AM Prime edition with this update, courtesy of Ghana Newsroom, in respect to the Indian Prime Minister's visit to Ghana last week.
The Caribbean Community, or CARICOM for short, is a regional bloc of 15 Caribbean countries. And leaders from those countries came to Georgetown, Guyana on Wednesday for the second ever CARICOM India Summit. Now, this summit was organized as the Indian Prime Minister, Narendra Modi, was in Guyana, or is in Guyana, for a 3-day state visit. And as he addressed the opening ceremony of that summit, Prime Minister Modi made it clear that he wants India to be a key partner for CARICOM. The Prime Minister, in his address to the regional leaders and other officials, spoke of the very many ways India can partner with Caribbean countries to help them meet their needs and satisfy their wants. Now, he extended several offers to those Caribbean leaders, ranging from the supply of cargo and passenger vessels to sharing agriculture technologies that would help expand food production in this region. The Prime Minister also spoke about India's long-standing support for training and in healthcare, and he said the country stands willing to expand that partnership with countries in the region.
Excellencies, in all of these pillars of CARICOM, there is one thing that is common, and that is that all of these are based on your priorities and your needs. This is the core principle of our cooperation, I am keen to hear your views on all of these matters.
Of particular note was that the Prime Minister wanted to also support the region's sport and culture development. He believes that sport and culture are two areas which the Caribbean region share a strong tie and have a strong connection with India. The Prime Minister said India wants to support the development of women's cricket here in the Caribbean.
And I'm not saying this just because India won the World Cup here. My proposal is that in order to further promote not only cricket relations, but also women empowerment, we can provide training to 11 young women cricketers from each CARICOM nation.
Now, India is the world's fastest growing major economy. But for Caribbean leaders, India stands as a beacon that represents the cause of other developing nations. This was made clear by both the Guyanese president, Dr. Irfan Ali, and the Grenadian Prime Minister, Deacon Mitchell, who's also serving as the current chairman of CARICOM.
India's pivotal role in BRICS and your steadfast advocacy for the developing world underscores your commitment to advancing the aspirations of the Global South. These initiatives have elevated India's stature and placed the concerns of developing nations, including the small island developing and low-lying coastal states of the Caribbean, firmly on the global agenda.
We envision a future where CARICOM-India relations continue to flourish and expand. Closer cooperation and collaboration amongst the leaders of CARICOM member states and India would serve to further enhance the partnerships and contribute to successfully strengthening our existing economic, commercial, and people-to-people relations.
Wednesday's summit was just a part of Prime Minister Modi's 3-day state visit to Guyana, but it was quite significant. For one, the summit comes as India is trying to deepen its relationship with CARICOM. For context, CARICOM and India started to formalize their bilateral ties since 1985. In the years after that, but particularly in the early 2000s, there was great movement in deepening the ties between India and CARICOM. In 2019, at the sidelines of the United Nations General Assembly in New York, the first ever CARICOM India Summit was held. And now this is the second time that summit is being held. But notably, it is the first time the summit is happening in a CARICOM member state. And it is significant that this summit is happening here in Guyana. Of course, Guyana is one of the founding members of CARICOM, and Guyana is also where the headquarters of CARICOM, its secretariat, is housed. Prime Minister Modi will conclude his 3-day visit to Guyana on Thursday with several other engagements. Reporting for the news.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. So, of course, that update from last week's visit by the Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi, to Ghana for the second ever CARICOM India Summit. So, of course, as I mentioned, quite a number of stories coming out from that summit, in particular in respect to decisions made by the leaders of CARICOM. But all eyes, all focus, of course, was on the arrival of Prime Minister Narendra Modi to Ghana for that particular summit and the extensions on the part of India in respect to diplomacy. Of course, we will continue to share such updates with you on EM Prime as they come in. Now, moving forward to another news story, of course, and this one had most people's eyes glued to the television over the course of the weekend. And that is COP29 and the conversations that took place in Azerbaijan. On Saturday, breaking news across all channels stating that the talks were on the verge of collapse following the exit from negotiation tables of most, if not all, of what is considered developing states globally. They left the chair with a sense of dissatisfaction. Eventually, an agreement was reached And though that be the case, it still seems unsatisfactory in respect to pledging support for those most affected by climate change, of course, the global north and the global south. Let's take a look at this report, courtesy of BBC.
World leaders have agreed an 11th-hour deal on climate finance at the COP29 summit in Azerbaijan. Wealthier countries have pledged $300 billion a year by 2035 to help poorer nations tackle climate change. But there wasn't universal support for the deal, with the Indian delegation calling the figure a paltry sum. Just hours before, it looked like the talks were on the verge of collapse after a group representing underdeveloped and lower-lying nations walked out of the conference room. They eventually came back to the negotiating table, but were angered by the offer from wealthier nations, which was far short of the $500 billion they wanted. From Baku, here's our climate editor, Justin Rolat.
It was in the early hours of this morning when the key text was agreed. To huge applause from the room. This deal was hard fought. At one stage, the talks looked set to collapse. Representatives of dozens of the world's least developed countries stormed out of a key meeting.
We've just walked out. We came here to this COP for a fair deal. We feel that we haven't been heard, and there's a deal to be made, and we have not been consulted.
At the same time, there was an effort by a group of fossil fuel-rich countries, led by Saudi Arabia, to water down a promise made at last year's COP conference to transition away from fossil fuels. The final deal here includes both a $300 billion a year commitment to helping developing countries tackle climate change and that strong language on cutting emissions.
I'm very pleased that we've got this deal through. It's the right thing for Britain. It's the right thing for speeding up the clean energy transition, which is good for Britain and it will help protect us against climate change, and that's the right thing to do. And it will also help generate jobs and growth for people in Britain. It's an 11th hour deal at the 11th hour for climate and for keeping 1.5 degrees alive. It's the right thing to do for Britain and the right thing for the world.
Some people are saying this deal isn't generous enough, that developed nations are dodging the debt they owe the developing world. Others are saying it shows that despite the divisions, despite Donald Trump threatening to pull America out of the process, the world can come together in this cooperative UN effort to tackle the existential threat of climate change. Justin Rolat, BBC News, Baku.
As we've heard, there's been a mixed reaction to the deal. The Indian representative at COP29 said they had strong reservations to the agreement and accused developed countries of being unwilling to fulfil their financial obligations to the rest of the world. Here's their delegate, Chandni Raina.
This document is nothing more than an optical illusion. This, in our opinion, will not address the enormity of the challenge we all face. Therefore, we oppose the adoption of this document. We oppose the adoption of this document. India opposes the adoption of this document, and please take note and regard of what we have just said from the floor of this room.
Henna Hundal, National Coordinator of Climate Live USA and COP29 delegate who's just returned from Baku, shared her thoughts on the deal.
You know, I think it's a complex situation. On the one hand, you have about 198 parties having to come together, have 2 weeks to reach a consensus. This includes parties whose economies are driven primarily by fossil fuels, and others whose economies are being destroyed by fossil fuels. So the fact that you can even get an agreement out of that type of a heterogeneous group is actually quite extraordinary and something to celebrate. At the same time, we know that this agreement has fallen quite short of what we know was actually needed. Economists had estimated that we actually need $1 trillion of climate finance by 2030, $1.3 trillion by 2035, about half coming from the public sector, half coming from the private sector, and this has fallen quite short of that. So I think there's room to celebrate, but also room to recognize that we have much more work to do.
The German Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock described these talks as the last stand by the fossil fuel world. Do you think that that's a fair description?
You know, I think we've certainly have seen a lot of fossil fuel lobbyists who attend these conferences, and that's been a point of concern among many people. It's also a matter of these conferences structurally involve bringing multiple parties and people and those with different interests around the table. It's really a very wide net that you're casting, and so it can be quite challenging to reach an agreement when you have all these people coming with different ambitions, visions, agendas, and goals, and to finally reach something like even $300 billion of climate finance is something worth celebrating. But I think there's definitely room for improvement here, and certainly really taking a hard look at the role of the fossil fuel industry and potentially having a role at these talks is something that we need to do for sure.
How much was the absence of key leaders and countries represented here making? How much difference did that make to the mood and the momentum at the COP29?
Well, I think it's undeniable that President-elect Donald Trump is returned to office next year, casted a long shadow over the proceedings of the conference. I mean, I heard talk about that both overtly and tacitly. People are sort of writing off the United States' participation for the next 4 years. It was kind of stunning to witness, given that I was there at COP26 in Scotland in 2021, when then President Biden's climate envoy, John Kerry, played a crucial role in negotiating the final deal that was reached in the 11th hour. So I think the United States' role is really coming into question. You know, we also saw French President Macron, German Chancellor Scholz, the Japanese Prime Minister, Canadian Prime Minister Trudeau also not make face. And I think that's important to think about, is there enough political will to actually execute on the pact that was reached? I think that remains an open question.
And much of the money that's supposed to be delivered here is actually going to come from the private sector, isn't it? How likely is it to actually materialise?
I think that's something we need to keep our eye on. I mean, it's certainly important. If we look at, for example, the Loss and Damage Fund, last year at COP28 in Dubai, millions of dollars were pledged by countries for that fund, which was designed to provide developing countries with money to specifically navigate the extreme weather disasters that they're facing that are causing so much destruction and devastation. And we've seen only a fraction of that money actually materialize. So I think that's probably one reason why the conference extended into overtime in the manner that it did and was particularly fraught, because not only do we need to reach the numbers, those climate finance numbers that the economists are telling us, but we have to make sure that these are not empty promises. And so I think there's certainly that sentiment felt among a lot of people, and increasingly so as we watch some of these promises not quite materialize over the years.
So, of course, that deal, as you can see from the report, falling short by an estimated $700 million to $1 trillion. Of course, a sense of dissatisfaction being expressed by small island developing states and underlying nations, of course. Well, we saw from India there for a second, one of the members of the BRICS group of nations. But climate advocates have expressed a sense of dissatisfaction, and though a deal has been reached, it is seems to be in favor of the more developed nations. That $300 billion, of course, being invested annually until 2035 for the energy transition. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got one more update to share with you, and it's a bit of an extended one. This comes from France 24. 1 year ago, they actually brought forward a report on the bird flu. Now, we are monitoring the situation globally. In respect to bird flu cases, there have been outbreaks across the United States, across Canada, and as far as Australia. But 1 year ago, when cases started to appear in large clusters, of course, there were question marks surrounding whether or not this can be the next pandemic. Although those in authority, particularly from health organizations within various nations who have been impacted, are suggesting that there's no need to panic as yet. There was concern in particular, and there still is concern about the transmission of the avian virus from birds to cows. So that is something that has also been a focus. But let's take a look at this report. As I said, 1 year ago from France 24, exactly what were they seeing?
It has ravaged farms, decimated wild birds, and spilled onto mammals. Can the avian flu spark the next human pandemic? Scientists are taking no chances tracking the virus to predict where it could strike next.
Nous sommes dans une des zones où on produit beaucoup de canards. Nous sommes éleveurs, gaveurs et conserveurs de canards gras. Depuis quelques années, il y a une chose qui s'appelle la grippe aviaire qui sévit en France, mais pas seulement qu'en France, et qui entraîne une très forte mortalité de nos animaux quand on est touché. Les canards est une des espèces les plus sensibles à la grippe aviaire. En temps normal, les canards sont en extérieur, ils se promènent dans les champs, dans les prés, ce qui n'est pas le cas actuellement puisque c'est 100% de leur temps en confinement. C'est quelque chose de difficile à vivre pour eux et pour nous. Certains lots ne verront jamais le jour ni jamais le soleil. Les animaux confinés vont se développer moins vite, moins bien, donc il y aura une perte en production au final, c'est-à-dire moins de viande, moins de foie gras. Cette grippe aviaire, ça reste une menace pour nous, même si on n'y est pas confronté directement, parce qu'on n'est pas au risque que ça arrive, qu'on soit obligé d'abattre nos canards. Il y a une gestion des élevages contaminés qui me paraît excessive, c'est-à-dire un élevage dans lequel on va trouver des animaux contaminés. L'élevage va être systématiquement abattu et on va aussi faire des dépeuplements 3 km autour de l'élevage, c'est-à-dire qu'on tue des dizaines, des centaines, des milliers, des millions d'animaux qui sont sains. Moi, ça me paraît une aberration totale, ce type de gestion. Ça pose vraiment beaucoup de soucis pour l'avenir. Après, si la seule solution, c'est la vaccination, moi, je suis totalement pour. Je vaccine mes canards et ils passent leur vie en extérieur, dans les prés, et ils sont beaucoup plus heureux.
This highly infectious strain of bird flu has been ripping through farms for a number of years now. Influenza A, also known as H5N1, was first detected at a goose farm in China in 1996. It can spread through entire flocks of birds through the animals' droppings and saliva. It's the fourth wave of avian influenza to grip Europe since 2015 and its worst outbreak on record, with nearly 50 million poultry culled in 2022, 16 million in France alone, one of the countries hit hardest by the disease. The way the disease is expanding has also set off alarm bells. It usually flares up in autumn before fading away in spring and summer. This outbreak, though, has defied all seasons. But what really has scientists concerned is the flu's pandemic potential, as infections have been reported across a wide spectrum of birds and other species, including mammals. There's one question on everyone's mind: what about human transmission? So far, H5N1 is a low risk to humans, but authorities are on high alert. The more it continues to spread, the greater the chances it may evolve. Every mutation is now being watched closely to avoid this scenario.
On est dans le laboratoire national de référence pour l'influenza aviaire. Nous sommes là pour faire le diagnostic officiel et dire si oui ou non c'est bien de l'influenza aviaire et quel est le virus qui provoque cette infection chez l'oiseau. Donc depuis août 2022, on a recensé un peu plus de 300 foyers en élevage. C'est énorme parce que la saison n'est pas encore terminée. Il faut aller jusqu'au mois de juillet de 2023 pour savoir l'ensemble des foyers qu'on pourra avoir cette année. Si on se réfère à l'année précédente, où on a eu à peu près de 1400 foyers en élevage, et donc c'est sans précédent, c'est 3 fois plus que les épizooties précédentes. Dès qu'on suspecte de l'influenza aviaire dans un élevage ou chez des oiseaux sauvages, donc des prélèvements sont faits, ce sont des écouvillons, un peu comme ce qu'on peut voir pour le Covid. Et nous affinons pour savoir quel est le virus qui est présent. Donc actuellement, on recherche en premier lieu si c'est un H5N1 hautement pathogène et on prévient dans ce cas-là directement les autorités pour dire si c'est positif. Le virus qui circule actuellement Pour l'instant, c'est un virus qui est aviaire, mais on essaye de surveiller sa transmission chez d'autres espèces animales, chez des mammifères notamment. Dernièrement, en France, on a eu la détection d'un cas chez un chat domestique. Et ce qu'on a pu constater, par exemple, c'est que seulement une multiplication chez ce chat a permis d'avoir les mutations qui permettent de favoriser la transmission chez les mammifères. Par rapport à ce qu'on a pu voir avec le Covid-19, c'est un petit peu différent, c'est qu'on sait faire les vaccins contre l'influenza. La difficulté quand même avec ces virus-là, c'est qu'ils peuvent se transmettre très vite. On a potentiellement un virus qui n'a jamais été rencontré par l'homme et donc on aurait une épidémie sans précédent et auquel il faudrait faire face rapidement, même si on a la disponibilité de vaccins et de moyens thérapeutiques.
Scientists have been taken aback by the magnitude of this outbreak, mostly because wild birds have been hit hard. They're known to be the hosts and transmitters of the disease, but now they've also become the latest victims.
C'est pas nouveau que la faune sauvage soit concernée par la grippe aviaire. Ce qui est nouveau, c'est l'ampleur du phénomène. Le virus est de plus en plus fort. Avant, les oiseaux sauvages étaient touchés par le virus, mouraient avec une toute petite proportion. Et puis ensuite, il n'y avait pas de contamination. Ce qui est inquiétant aujourd'hui, c'est que le virus tue les oiseaux, mais surtout il résiste et se disperse. Ici en France, ce qu'on a constaté, c'est qu'il y avait deux grands groupes d'oiseaux qui ont été touchés. D'abord les rapaces, et en particulier les vautours. Ce qui est exceptionnel, il n'y avait jamais eu de vautours au niveau mondial qui étaient contaminés par la grippe aviaire. Il y a les oiseaux marins, c'est la première fois aussi que les oiseaux marins et notamment les fous de bassin sont touchés à ce point. On estime que 40% au moins des adultes sont morts et au moins 90% des poussins. Donc vous voyez, en une seule crise, on a perdu plusieurs milliers, dizaines de milliers d'oiseaux et on va avoir beaucoup de mal à ce que la population se relance.
Nous sommes sur la région parisienne, à 20 km de Paris, au sud. On arrive aujourd'hui à peu près à 1400 oiseaux morts, en 3 semaines à peu près, donc ce qui est quand même énorme. On est obligé de prendre notre bateau régulièrement, si vous voulez, à peu près tous les 2 jours, pour pouvoir constater le taux de mortalité sur les lacs. C'est une pandémie et on ne pensait pas qu'on allait arriver à ce taux-là. On est sur des mouettes rieuses essentiellement. On a eu des goélands, un canard, un cygne hier et également une poule d'eau. Une fois que les oiseaux sont ramassés la journée, on est obligé de les mettre dans un congélateur qui nous permet d'accueillir environ 270 mouettes rieuses. Mais aujourd'hui, si vous voulez, notre congélateur, avec un passage d'équarrissage une fois à la semaine, ne suffit plus. Aujourd'hui, pour moi, effectivement, c'est du jamais vu.
On se demande quelles vont être les espèces de la faune sauvage qui vont être les prochaines victimes. Et évidemment, on est très inquiet sur des espèces qui sont déjà en danger d'extinction et que la grippe aviaire se fixe sur ces espèces.
On est aujourd'hui dans une situation qui nous amène à faire le constat qu'on n'arrive pas à contrôler l'infection sans recours à la vaccination. Une de mes missions aujourd'hui, c'est de piloter les essais de vaccination qui permettront, on l'espère, la mise en œuvre de la vaccination dans ces élevages dans les prochains mois. L'objectif qui est fixé, c'est septembre 2023. Donc il y a des vraies exploitations qui sont partenaires et dans lesquelles on a testé les 2 solutions vaccinales. Ces animaux ont été suivis, ils ont été prélevés régulièrement par des écouvillons et des prises de sang tout le long de leur vie pour détecter les anticorps. Et on a en parallèle fait des tests moléculaires pour vérifier qu'il n'y avait pas de circulation de virus dans ces troupeaux vaccinés. On a des gens qui vont travailler en pathologie, c'est-à-dire qui vont étudier les lésions et la distribution du virus dans les organes des oiseaux qui sont infectés, pour, là encore, essayer de comprendre quelles sont les voies d'infection et de dissémination du virus. On sait en France que les palmipèdes, les canards, jouent un rôle prépondérant dans ce qu'on appelle la dynamique d'infection. Ce qui veut dire que si on arrive à contrôler l'infection chez le canard, on pense qu'on gagne une grande partie du contrôle de la maladie. Les collègues néerlandais ont mis un focus sur la poule, les collègues italiens sur la dinde. Et l'idée, c'est qu'on mette en commun les données et faire en sorte qu'à l'échelle européenne, on arrive à contrôler sur l'ensemble des volailles concernées l'infection via la vaccination. Un des enjeux essentiels dans la vaccination influenza, c'est d'être en mesure de certifier que les animaux qui sont vaccinés ne sont pas porteurs sains, on va dire, de virus à bas bruit. Il y a une certaine réticence et une certaine méfiance à l'échelle internationale. Je pense qu'aujourd'hui, on dépasse cette discussion puisqu'on voit bien que la nature du risque a changé et que nous n'avons en fait pas trop le choix. Donc il n'y a pas une solution miracle et la vaccination ne sera pas la solution miracle, mais ça peut être un outil très important si elle arrive à le combiner intelligemment aux autres outils, notamment l'hygiène et la surveillance.
Give us a call at 235-5479.
The Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist,
where good private health care is affordable.
Transform your home with PCU Plus. From stylish furniture to the latest appliances, we have everything you need to create your perfect space. At PCU Plus, we offer fair prices and affordable financing options that are cheaper than hire purchase agreements. With convenient locations in San Fernando, Tobago, Arima, and our lifestyle showroom in Barataria, you're never far from the best deals. Visit PCU Plus today and discover why we're the top choice for quality furniture and appliances. PCU Plus. Quality you trust, prices you'll love. Visit one of our locations or find us online to start transforming your home today.
Welcome back to AM Prime, ladies and gentlemen, and thanks for being with us this morning as we get into our first interview focusing on what is happening at the University of the West Indies St. Augustine campus in particular, with this members of staff participating in a Blackout Friday last week. This is in respect to ongoing wage negotiations. Members of staff feel disrespected in respect to what seems to be a lack of communication. The Minister of Finance did make a comment in Parliament, but what is the communication between those in authority and members of the West Indies Group of University Teachers, St. Augustine? Beyond that, according to the executive of the campus, this is the principal, vice principal, etc., they are limited in respect to their options, whilst they do understand the points raised, and they are considered on their part as well in respect to the points raised by members of the group of teachers. They're also concerned as per the situation that can impact and is impacting upon students. I'm joined this morning by the president of the West Indies Group of University Teachers, Dr. Indira Rampasad. Good morning, Dr. Rampasad, and welcome to the program.
Hi, good morning. Good morning. How are you?
I am doing well, Dr. Rampasad. How are you doing?
I'm all right. All right. Struggling along.
All things considered, Dr. Rampasad, according to a release from the university executive, UWI staff remain the poorest in the UWIverse. Now, it's also been noted that recently there were successful negotiations that were concluded at the Mona campus in Jamaica and, of course, the Cayville campus in Barbados as well. But could you please explain a bit further as per that statement of staff being the poorest in the UWIverse? Could you push it into context, please?
So they have basically settled beyond 2024. They managed to keep their negotiations current and contemporary because the government has been settling outstanding wage negotiations. Unlike we got Trinidad and Tobago, so we got Cayville, we got Jamaica, we got Barbados, because we also represent the global campus, what was previously the open campus. So it's not just the St. Augustine campus. We are on 2014 salaries. Like many of the trade unions that you would see protesting and clamoring for better wages in Trinidad, this government came into power in 2015, in August 2015. No, in 2015, made a promise to settle negotiations in August 2015. That would have been the 7th of August 2015, and that was part of their campaign promise, that they would settle all outstanding negotiations. And now, today, 2024, this is almost 10 years later, there have been no settlement. So this is the plight of the workers at the UWI. We got in particular, there are other unions on the campus, not been settled. Also is the OWTU, which is a branch of the bigger umbrella OWTU, representing the technical services staff there. So the governments, they say, principal would say, she's been waiting, she's been calling, she's been writing, no avail. We had submitted a proposal, so that one which the minister was speaking about in the parliament on Friday was an old proposal, actually. So it seems as though he was not quite in touch with what's been going on at the UWI. He was sent a revised proposal on his request since March 2024. And since then, this negotiations just been dragging on and on. It's protracted delay, as we would call it now, with no resolution in sight, because the government has not really been communicating with the principal, according to her.
However, the government is not communicating with the principal. Does that suggest that the negotiations have stalled completely?
Well, there's no negotiations to stall. That's the problem. The negotiations have not been taking place. There's a difference when negotiations begin and it's stalled. There's deadlock. That was not taking place. So the first we have heard about anything about our proposal, even the old one, was from the parliament, on Friday. So I don't know if the minister was negotiating, because I think he was responding to a request from the opposition. I don't know if he was negotiating through the parliament or what, but we have not been hearing anything.
And what do you make of the Minister of Finance's comments in Parliament as it relates to the offers? versus the fact that the executive of the campus and by extension Wigan have not heard of anything. The minister said for 2014 to 2017, 0.02%, and of course 4% for the negotiating period following 2017. I mean, what do you make of this proposal on his part that was stated in Parliament on Friday?
I don't know if that is something to boast about. 0.02 and 0.02. And that's what you're throwing at university lecturers. We don't want to even go into the Salaries Review Commission report. I'm sure you will want to go there. But that is not 0.02 there. You know, that is certainly not 0.02. So it's a slap in the face, nothing to boast about. And we rejected it outright. And upon his request, you know, we did a salary adjustment proposal. Because, you know, the University of the West Indies teachers, and it's not just teachers, it's academic, senior, administrative, and professional staff. We are actually a kind of special group, you know. We have certain skills, specialized skills. You can't just pick up a university lecturer on the side of the street. You know, it's highly specialized skills. It's very high qualifications. Most of our academic staff, some of our senior administrative and professional staff are PhDs. You know, and the salary that we're receiving is amongst the most paltry in the world, so that we're losing staff. There's a very high attrition rate of staff at the campus, very high. Many are leaving. There's a big brain drain. They're going to, you know, leaving for greener pastures. And we can't attract. So what we're having is to hire instructors, hire part-timers to teach these courses, which is not the best case scenario.
Focusing again on what the Minister of Finance stated in Parliament, quoting directly from him, he says, "I do not think it is prudent to impose a burden of back pay of 701 million on the taxpayers of TNT. There are means of settling this dispute." He further stressed this matter was not about government interference, but rather about affordability. Is the demands of Wigan too high, considering the economic challenges TNT is currently facing?
Well, that figure again he was quoting was a wrong figure. Like I said, he had all his figures wrong. Okay, but remember, this is 10 years. Remember, it's 10 years we're looking at, a 10-year period, and that is not our fault. If you didn't settle negotiations over 10 years, you have amassed this debt. This is money's owed, you know. This is our just dues. You have amassed this debt, and that is not the responsibility of WIGOT or any other union. If you have amassed a debt that you claiming is very high, but what about again the recommendations of the Salaries Review Commission? If we were part of that body, I think it probably would have been higher, given what is being offered, what is being recommended for the politicians.
Now, in that respect, we saw what happened on last week Friday, in Blackout Friday. It's something that was adopted by the group last year as well. It is impacting campus, or has the potential to impact campus operations. But in that respect, given that this is an ongoing situation and there has been what seems to be a complete lack of communication, what are the next steps that WIGOT, St. Augustine, and Global Campus plan to adopt to try and seek some sort of reprieve in this matter?
All right, so combined, it's WIGOT Trinidad and Tobago. So we are continuing, and the notification will have gone out today about a week of rest, reflect, and research. You know, so this entire week they're going to wear white. They're going to, you know, they're going to be at their workstations. They're not going to answer their phones nor their emails. They're going to reflect on the week's protests. They're going to reflect on the recommendations of the Salaries Review Commission. They're going to think about animal farm, you know, and they are going to interrogate why some animals are equal and others, you know, but some are more equal than others. They're going to think about the millions that are being thrown at the politicians. You know, they're being asked not to attend any meetings, departmental, faculty meetings, any meetings at all. They're going to be not expected to you know, to undertake any tasks that are assigned to them. So, you know, like I said, we have academic, senior administrative, and professional staff. The teaching has ended on Friday. That was the last day of teaching. The students are on this week, they're on a break. They are on their reading week. But that doesn't mean that there's no work for academic staff. You know, we're in tons of committees, we have meetings to attend, you know, we have exams to attend to. We decided we're not going to stop the exams, but come January, there's going to be a problem, probably, there's going to be a problem of the grades. You know, the grades may not be submitted. So this week is a white week, another whitewash week. Of this time rest, reflect, and research. And next week is going to be another black week of disconnect, disengage, and detach. So they're going to be a massive blackout week next week. All staff, including the senior administrative and professional staff, and there would be a complete shutdown of all systems operations. And that would be the faculties, the departments, the principal and deputy principal's office, because they have our members there too, the bursary, the registry, student services, the library, the IT department, the Center for Language Learning, the SALISIS, the Gender Department, Institute of International Relations, the COCO Research, Field Station, Project Office, the administration, the labs, bookstore, and all the others. So it's basically what we noticed, that a deep depression amongst our members in working on these 2014 salaries. And so this depression is affecting their mental health, and they are not able to function. So they're not going to be attending any departmental faculty meetings or any meetings whatsoever, or undertake any task they are assigned. They're not going to be advising students. The library is also going to be shut down, human resource department, all the departments at the university. So it's going to be a massive blackout come next week, but it's going to start today with the whitewash week of rest, reflect, and research.
Just to clarify, you indicated that this massive blackout next week, is it going to impact students' ability to write exams?
No, it's no. Like we said, the exams will go through, but come January, the marks are due on the 7th of January. Unless this is settled, so we are calling for urgent now. It's urgent because it's been too long. It's way too long. We've been at this. I was at this very channel last year speaking about this. You would recall that.
Yes.
We recall we had a long interview. So it's deja vu. We're back to square one. We're back to the same place because nothing has changed. It has not budged. There has not even been the slightest of movement in these negotiations.
Now, in this respect as well, very unfortunate what we're hearing 1 year later. As you mentioned, nothing has changed. What about a complete shutdown of campus operations? Again, the Minister of Finance believes that there wouldn't be campus operations wouldn't collapse because of this impasse, but it seems it's heading in that direction from what Wiggett is presenting this morning.
Yes, and our members are complying. You know, our members are complying to our call. They're heeding our call to take this action because many of them are suffering. You know, meet them on the corridors, and they tell you, you know, they just can't make ends meet. The price of food and fuel and housing and transportation, price of everything is constantly rising, and the salary the food price has gone up by some 46%. You know, and, you know, the fuel, as we saw, it's went up so many times. So the value of the dollar, the purchasing power, has declined considerably. And this is a bone of contention. How are you expecting our lecturers, our senior administrative and professional staff to live on these salaries? It is totally untenable.
What if Wiggett's satisfaction in respect to the campus's executive in actually assisting? They've issued a release stating that their options are limited. But with the options available, do you think that the campus executive have done an efficient and effective job in ensuring that the concerns of the staff, as well as, of course, the students, have been raised efficiently and effectively?
Well, the principal managed to get the Minister of Finance at the campus for research awards. 2 Thursdays ago. So we were hoping that, she could have raised it there because she had no access. Otherwise, when she kept calling and writing, she was not getting a response. So we suggest that she call him again to the campus. And we are willing to meet with him. It might be unorthodox. It might not be the normal procedure, but this is not normal behavior anyway from the government, and just not budging. So she claimed that she's been writing and writing and calling and not been getting responses. Nothing would do. So we said, well, invite him again to the campus. He came before. He came 2 Thursdays ago. I think it was last week Thursday, not last week Thursday, but the week before. Then bring him. WIGOT is willing to meet with him. We can meet with our membership. He can talk to us. We can hear what he has to say. But so far, there's just been no communication and no dialogue. It's just never even started to end up in deadlock. But it's pretty much that because nothing's happening.
That has me a bit confused too, Dr. Rampersad. The minister stood up in Parliament and stated that there are ways to try and deal with this situation, and he's hoping all parties involved will do so. But he has not stated exactly what are those ways or what can be done. Could you please just inform us this morning of those avenues in which this situation can be resolved?
Well, they have to meet, they have to negotiate. So I think the opposition was was asking about dispute resolution.
Just to clarify, speaking about the CPO and WIGOT, or is it beyond the CPO at this point?
We don't know what they're doing. We don't know. Like I said, there's been no responses. According to the principal, there's been no responses. The figures he was quoting were archaic. So I don't know if he was getting the wrong figures, what's been happening, but the opposition was asking about dispute resolution. WIGOT doesn't go to the industrial court. So he through the Port Authority, they have to face an injunction from the industrial court. So they have to go back to work, go back to the port. That is the SWWTU workers, the Cement and Waterfront Workers Trade Union. That is not the case with WIGOT. We have to engage first negotiations. And this is the dialogue, the discussion that has to take place between the campus management and the government. And if that doesn't work, eventually we are going to have to consider now our options for alternative dispute resolution, which would be probably conciliation and arbitration. Okay, and the government will have to be a part of that, since while our employer is the University of the West Indies, UE, represented by the principal, the government pays the salary. So any dispute resolution mechanism that is used will have to include the government. So they're not above board. They're not going to be escaping unscathed. And then they should understand that they cannot throw WIGOT in the industrial court. That is not part of the process, the negotiating process for WIGOT.
Well, actually, I want to come now to some criticism that WIGOT has faced, and it comes from two former principals, Professor Clement Sankard and Dr. Bhuendranath Tiwari, who have both, whilst they've empathized with the situation, they have also stated that the actions on the part of WIGOT, of course, will impact students, and it's students that come first. Professor Sankard indicating that he was very much aware of this from all sides, having been a former staff member of himself and, of course, an ex-principal. But there are also concerns about the impact to students and the potential impact, as you mentioned, grades are due by January 7th. So how do you respond to this criticism on the part of the two principals, the two former principals?
Well, it's because we undertook actions such as withholding grades that both of them are probably enjoying a lot of the benefits that they enjoyed. They were also members of WIGOT, and as retirees, they are receiving pensions which were negotiated by WIGOT, and the health benefits that they receive were also negotiated by WIGOT. So, there is cause, there is action, and there is outcome. They're sympathetic with the cause. We don't expect everyone to be sympathetic with or empathetic with our actions when TNTech black out and the whole population is affected because they are fighting for their just dues. That is the nature of trade unionism, or when WASA cut the water and everybody suffers. That's the nature of trade unionism. But our actions are not targeting the students. It's clearly not targeting the students. Our action is targeting a resolution. Our action is targeting attention. we are looking to get the attention of the government to deal with our issue. So if they are not dealing with it and the students end up having to face this situation, this challenge is the government's fault. This is not WIGOT's fault. WIGOT has to use whatever strategies are available. So yes, Principal Sankat and Professor Dr. Tiwari may have been shaken in their shoes in the days with WIGOT action. Yes, they also benefit, and all our staff, all our executive members of the campus, all our management members, they're members of WIGOT too, and they have benefited over the decades through WIGOT's struggle. Principal Sankat, they actually confiscated one of our facilities, the senior common room, and for 12 years we had to struggle to get that back. It's only on the 8th of November that the current principal returned the facilities to staff. So some of them are rabidly anti-union and anti-staff. While they want to say they're sympathizing with the cause, they've not treated staff fairly either. So, it's interesting that they would come and make these statements that they're not in favor of withholding grades. Certainly, I don't expect them to be in favor of anything, but they're reaping the benefits of our struggles, even today in their retirement.
Dr. Rampersad, as we're coming to the end of this particular conversation, you've mentioned that there is the potential if if the situation is actually not seen to in due time, that January 7th, when grades are due, they may be withheld. Has WIGOT also thought about its actions that it will take into semester 2? Arguably, it will impact and is impacting the enthusiasm of staff to work and to it at their best. But have you thought about the actions WIGOT is willing to take into semester 2?
Withholding of grades in semester 2, that's January 7th.
No, yes, I understand that. But in respect to classes and operations of the campus as it's supposed to begin, yeah.
Yeah, so we're strategizing. We have 2 weeks now. We're planning, so this week and next week. Okay, the students go into exams next week. The campus would go into a break, in late December. We don't go into a break, by the way. We have to be, while everyone is having the sorrel and the punch of creme and fruitcake. We are grading papers. So we grade the papers, but that marks will be withheld, and there are lots of things that can happen in semester 2. We have teaching, we have academic advising, we have a whole set of activities that, to start a semester at the campus, to have student affairs up and running. Many of those can grind to a halt come January.
Dr. Rampersad, as you mentioned, a lot of staff do not even enjoy the full festivities associated with the Christmas season. I, as a former student, know that up until the 23rd, sometimes even Christmas Eve, there are exams, final exams. So teachers have to begin marking as soon as they receive these papers. So I very much am aware of that situation. Dr. Rampersad, again, I'm sorry that 1 year later, as you mentioned, we are having a similar conversation. I do hope that there is some sort of relief that is met soon by the parties involved in this. Thank you very much for your time this morning, and we await further updates at this point.
Thank you so much for your kind words and your empathy and your support. Maybe you would come and join us in solidarity at the campus when we march in next. Looking forward to that, since you were one of my students. I'm very proud of you, and I wish you all the best as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rampersad. All the very best to you and to all of WIGOT's members.
You're most welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Well, ladies and gentlemen, very much aware as per what university teachers and all staff face and go through, having been there myself. Again, students will be impacted, but as Dr. Rampersad indicated, they are going ahead with exams. There will be possibly issues with respect to grades. We hope it doesn't reach that point. But the whole thing seems to be a complete lack of communication. There's been no response to WIGOT. And beyond that, the Minister of Finance, as Dr. Rampersad clarified, was speaking of an old proposal. She's not even aware if he is receiving the most up-to-date information. And even then, there has still been no communication on his part to WIGOT. So we await to hear further updates, ladies and gentlemen. At this point, that's all we can do. But as I said, up until 23rd, 24th exams are coming to an end, and lecturers and staff have to begin marking right away. So that in itself, uh, it really decreases the level of enthusiasm on the part of teachers. That's one thing I can very much recognize and understand. So let's take a break here on the program for now. Lots more to get into. Stay with us on AM Prime. We'll be right back.
Maybe he landed here totally by coincidence. But if by chance he's admiring your fresh coat of Benjamin Moore soft sky blue, well, that's a pretty high compliment. Coming from an expert.
My name is Dr. Stephen Carroll, the CEO at Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist, and we are committed to making good private healthcare affordable.
For all your medical needs, including dental, radiology, laparoscopy, behavioral and mental health, along with many other services, contact us for more information at 235-5479.
Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist,
where good private health care is affordable.
SM Group International Limited, your solutions partner for the latest innovations, brands, and competent staff to meet your needs. We provide products and services in the following divisions: executive services, event rental and services, power and heavy equipment, construction and property management, food and beverage, aggregate and sales and distribution. Check out more on our products and services at www.smgrouptt.com. Contact us at 221-7445 or email at info@smgrouptt.com. We are SM Group International, your solutions partner.
Transform your home with PCU Plus. From stylish furniture to the latest appliances, we have everything you need to create your perfect space. At PCU Plus, we offer fair prices and affordable financing options that are cheaper than hire purchase agreements. With convenient locations in San Fernando, Tobago, Arima, and our lifestyle showroom in Barataria, you're never far from the best deals. Visit PCU Plus today and discover why we're the top choice for quality furniture and appliances. PCU Plus, quality you trust, prices you'll love. Visit one of our locations or find us online to start transforming your home today.
Thank you very much for being with us this morning, ladies and gentlemen, as we continue with this edition of AM Prime. As you are aware, if you've been following AM Prime for some time now, we follow coral reef ecology, particularly the health of Tobago's coral reefs. And we've had extensive conversation over the last year and a half in respect to their health, as well as efforts to try and rehabilitate the reef. So, the latest news coming out of Tobago's coral reefs, and then I've been wondering what is the most appropriate way to effectively get this message across. So the introduction to this particular interview, simple. Tobago's coral reefs are in crisis, and it's gotten to a stage where the alert from the Institute of Marine Affairs has indicated that a level 5 bleaching event is taking place. There's a risk of near complete mortality of multiple species. What does this suggest? Does it indicate that we could be seeing an extinction event in the sense of the Tobago coral reefs? What are the chances of the coral reef systems actually recovering, and how long is this going to take? Well, I don't have all the answers, but hopefully my guest can guide us this morning. She's a research officer in marine ecology at the Marine Resilience Initiative, part of the Tobago project. I'm joined this morning by Ms. Hannah Lochan. Good morning, Ms. Lochan, and welcome to the program.
Hello, good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you very much for joining us indeed. Ms. Lochan, as we were speaking of, you indicated that you actually dived to actually witness what is taking place at the coral reefs across Tobago, of course, as a part of your research. But could you just describe to us what you bore witness to?
So in August, we were put under a bleaching alert level 2 by NOAA. So that is when we put out a notice to our stakeholders, our divers in Tobago. We said, no, please keep us updated. And they did. We got a lot of reports of bleaching Tobago-wide all around. And that's when we made the decision that this is really bad. We need to do an assessment. So the IME team was in Tobago last week. And I have to admit, it was devastating. We dived at about nine sites from Northeast Tobago, Caribbean side, as well as Southwest, and all sites were severely impacted by bleaching. So we did, when you go down, you just see a lot of white corals. It was very sad.
Now, this has been described as a level 5 or highest level of concern. Could you just describe to us exactly what that means in respect to, again, the images of what you would have witnessed?
Right. So the National Atmospheric and Oceanographic Administration, they work out of the United States. That's NOAA. They're the ones that put out these alerts. So they have regional alerts. So they'll for Bahamas, for Southern Caribbean, and they will let us know. So they'll send alerts and be like, hey, you're at a bleaching alert level 2. Look out for this, look out for that. So last year, we experienced a really bad bleaching event, and they actually raised their range from alert level 2 to alert level 5. So this is to really encompass the amount of heat stress. So these alerts from level 2 to level 5 just give an indication to the amount of heat stress that the corals are under. So when you're at level 5, that means that it has been weeks and weeks of heat stress. That's about 25 weeks of heat stress that we've experienced. So that is where we are at for Tobago right now. Currently, it's now starting to go down, and they project that temperatures will decrease by January. So right now we have corals that are really stressed. For the next couple of weeks, they will still be stressed, and we have to hope that they can still survive, and then they can recover once the temperatures go down.
Well, actually, taking a look at the release on the part of the IMA, and you're part of the team, of course, it says the team has observed up to 78% bleaching at some sites.
Yeah.
You just mentioned that 9 in particular, you guys had a diving expedition last week, with some critical species showing up to 95 or even 100% impact. Can you just tell us what those critical species exactly are, and why are they considered critical species?
Sure. So we have about maybe a little less than 40 coral species in the Atlantic that we observe in Tobago. And you have different species. So you might have ones that stay pretty small, or you actually have ones that grow really big. And those are the critical species that we are talking about. So you have some huge mountainous corals that, when you dive, they're like the size of cars. They're huge, big brain corals. And those are the critical species that we talk about, because those are the ones that, really provide a lot of structure to the reef, a lot of habitats to fish, they will be the ones that will protect us from from wave action. So when we dive, we actually observed, 90 to 100% bleaching in these huge, large colonies that we have. So we do have other small colonies, but while important, they don't provide the same benefits as these larger colonies do. So one thing to note, though, is that while yes, they are white, they are bleaching, they're not dead as yet. So that is one positive that we noted, is that the corals are bleaching, they're white, but they can still recover if the temperatures go down. And that's what we have to monitor next year. And also we ask our stakeholders just, to keep us updated as well. But it's important to know that all the white pictures that you're seeing, that doesn't mean that the reefs are dead, the reefs are stressed, but we are hoping that they can recover.
I'm glad that you mentioned that, because in my introduction, the question I asked is, are we even looking at something near to an extinction event? So I'm glad that you mentioned that, but you're stating that by January, hopefully your temperatures will decrease. There's nothing that can be done between now and then other than monitoring and observing, of course.
Not particularly when it comes to this global issue of warming sea temperatures. So that's what's happening. The Earth is heating up. Globally, they are experiencing marine heat waves different times of the year, and that is what we have experienced. So last year, it was actually Northern Caribbean that got hit really bad. Southern Caribbean this year, we're not looking forward to next year too much, in that these corals have gone through a lot. We have seen the temperatures this year started rising by about June. So we know that while yes, temperatures might go down by this January, we know that it's not long again before it possibly continues to rise. So that is what we'll be looking at. Also, there are key things that we can do in the meantime. So for the corals are stressed, ideally, what happens after bleaching events is disease outbreaks. So just like how we might be really stressed and then we might be more prone to getting sick while we're stressed, that's kind of what happens with the corals. So we'll ask people, just to be mindful when you're diving, don't touch the corals, just all the important grazers that we have, the sea urchins, the parrotfish, right now, those are really important just to keep turf algae at bay as much as possible. And yeah, we will continue monitoring.
As you mentioned, the corals are not necessarily dead as dead, they're just white. Again, you're seeing a lower third on your screen, near complete mortality of several species. It's actually risk of near complete mortality of several species. As Ms. Luchan stressed, they are not necessarily dead as dead. Please do not touch the corals or interfere with them. You know, some people like to take souvenirs as they as they think of it. But in that respect as well, Ms. Luchan, could you just describe how this has actually changed the entire ecosystem surrounding Tobago's waters? Coral reefs, of course, are home to many species of marine life. Are we seeing a migration of such marine life, or even perhaps this marine life disappearing from around Tobago's waters because of death?
Well, so right now we do, I mean, that's a good question. Tobago's reefs, we do have about 18% coral cover around Tobago. So that is it's not bad, but it's on the lower end. And that has, so I give you some backstory. So since 2010, we had a big bleaching event and we actually had a lot of coral loss. After 2010, that coral cover kind of stabilized. We didn't have any new corals forming. We didn't lose much more, but we are now at another major bleaching event. So that is something that we will have to monitor. It's possible that we do have high mortality after this event. We will have to do more monitoring and more assessments just to determine how much actually occurred. But yes, it will. I mean, coral reefs have so many benefits. They protect our coastlines. We have so many people whose livelihoods depend on them, whether it's fisher folk, glass bottom boaters, recreational divers. And yeah, no, it's really sad, and we just have to make sure we can try to do what we can to help the ecosystems.
You just mentioned that these coral reefs are so important and they play multiple roles. What could be the potential situation that we are facing should we actually see mortality events taking place? As I mentioned, a risk of near complete mortality of several species. Should that happen, and we certainly hope it doesn't get to that point, we hope January gets there very quickly and temperatures, of course, decrease. But what can happen? What is the knock-on effect of such happening?
Well, we can have significant coral loss. It will change some of the biodiversity of the area. Right now, we do have a restoration program ongoing at the Institute of Marine Affairs, where we use sexually reproducing corals to rehabilitate areas. That has started this year. That is something that we would really like to continue and hope that that continues to be successful so that we can try to improve the area. But yes, significant coral loss we really hope that that is not the case.
What about us as individuals? I know that Institute of Marine Affairs and other partners, of course, are working to try and help the situation, but as us, as human beings, the ones who are attracted to the waters and the beauty of the coral reef systems, what can we do to try and help the situation?
Well, like I had mentioned, if you're visiting the reef, it's just to, be really mindful. Don't touch the corals. Don't remove when that fish. Don't remove the sea urchins. Don't remove the key grazers on the reef. That is something that very beneficial. Also, little things like pollution, littering, all these little stresses, all these little threats can add up. And yeah, we just ask that persons be really mindful when visiting the areas. And also, if you are aware of the situation, feel free to pass on the information. Feel free to educate others. If you see, education and outreach and just engaging, and the more people that are aware of the situation, I think that will really help as well.
I think one part of it is we're telling Trinbagonians not to interfere. That's a difficult thing. We like to answer everything. But as we're concluding this conversation this morning, Ms. Lochin, are there any other important factors or points that you wish to note or you think should be noted for education and awareness purposes?
Yes, well, that would be the short term is that we ask that, patients just be mindful when diving, but we are also, advocating for more marine protection for these areas. We are also, Institute of Marine Affairs will be doing more research with looking at preserving Tobago's coral reefs from coral-related diseases. So right now there is a disease called stony coral tissue loss disease that is rampant in other parts of the Caribbean. Right now it has not been recorded as yet for Tobago. So that is something that we are keeping our eyes on for sure. We've asked our stakeholders, just to keep an eye out because that is a really virulent disease. It has decimated a lot of coral reef cover. So that is one thing that the IMA is really looking at because we are expecting disease outbreaks after the bleaching, and we are just want to be really careful of whether we do have this disease that can further stress the corals that we have.
Curious to know though exactly how does the stony coral tissue disease, how is it transmitted and exactly does it impact the
So
corals?
it is transmitted through water currents. So research has shown that it also is found often at ports. So they believe that it's through ballast water in ships. So we would be doing a lot of, awareness and engagement just to let people know and reaching out to agencies just to try to monitor and mitigate this as much as possible. It's a bacterial infection. So in other countries, they have actually treated the corals that have been infected with antibiotic treatment. That is one method that they do. However, if you have a mass outbreak, it's really hard, it's really expensive, it's really laborious to individually treat each colony. So that's just something that we will be monitoring over the next few months. And we're hoping it doesn't come.
You see, the thing is, the answers seem so obvious, but I was just hoping there was some way that it could be prevented. But of course, I guess that's just speaking from a mindset of hope.
No, it's yeah,
All right,
it's a
so
worrying situation, but we need to work together, governments, community, individuals.
I've got one more for you, actually, and this comes from our director this morning, and he's asking about the population of lionfish and how has that been impacted, if at all, and is it still significant, where it's also still impacting on other coral reef species?
So we do still have lionfish on the reef. The Institute of Marine Affairs, this is a separate project from where I work, is that they are looking at the lionfish population around Tobago. And yes, so lionfish are still present. We know that lionfish are voracious eaters. They eat everything on the reef. So being able to understand the populations and teach persons about sparing, about these safely catching and eating these fish, they are actually very delicious. So that is one of the projects that is ongoing, just to raise more awareness and education on the lionfish.
Tell you what, I like that response. It's not really a part of my project. It's a separate project, but they do taste delicious. Miss Lucian, thank you very much for joining us on the program this morning. Thank you for sharing your first-hand experience with us following that diving expedition. I believe it was last week, and of course the monitoring as the IMA is currently undertaking. So all the very best to you. Thank you for your work and for the entire team, the work that they're doing. Hopefully January brings some good news. Hopefully 2025 right around the corner brings some best news.
Thank you for allowing us to share, and we will keep you updated as well.
Indeed, please do. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Take care. All the best. Ms. Hannah Lucian joining us on the program this morning for really to give us an idea as to what is taking place in respect to the coral reefs surrounding Tobago. As I mentioned, we have been, AM Prime has been monitoring the situation as well. Ms. Lucian stressed the importance, and at previous interviews as well with Dr. Anthony Guinness has stressed the importance of coral reefs to the islands in respect to coastal protection, in respect to habitats, in respect to fishing, and even tourism. If we lose the corals, do these glass bottom boats just go to an island, pull them back? Well, ladies and gentlemen, all those things can be impacted, but the good news is the lionfish are still there. They taste delicious. Never had it, but possibly something to try. So thank you very much once more to Ms. Luchan, and of course the entire team at the Institute of Marine Affairs for their hard work and their effort, their continued efforts in the fight to save the coral reefs. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is it for AM Prime this morning. Thank you very much to all my guests for joining me. We started the program with some updates, of course, to share with you, starting with the CARICOM India Summit, the second ever CARICOM in India Summit that took place last week in Guyana. There was also to update you on the COP29 talks in Azerbaijan, Baku, Azerbaijan, which were on the verge of collapse. A $300 billion deal was eventually agreed. But to the anger and frustration of many underlying and small developing nations across the world who are most impacted by global warming and climate change, it's fallen short by about 700 billion to $1 trillion. It's fallen short by that much, but 300 billion annually between now and 2035 for investments in the energy transition is clearly not enough according to these nations. And we ended those updates, of course, to try and share with you a report from 1 year ago on the part of France 24 in respect to bird flu and whether or not it can be the next epidemic or pandemic. Epidemic, of course, to France and the European nations, pandemic to the entire world. We had Dr. Rapasan on this morning to speak to us in respect to the UE negotiations or no negotiations, it would seem, as it's taking place there. But this week it's white, next week it's black, and exams will go ahead as planned. But the situation is in respect to exam results. Grades are due to be submitted by January 7th. That may be impacted if no relief is seen to. As I said, exams go up until the 23rd, 24th of December. Lecturers work right through the festive period in having to grade papers. So I'm very much aware of that situation. And believe me, situations like this just further create a decline in enthusiasm. So we will observe and monitor as well on our part. It's the same thing that we're doing with respect to the coral reefs as well in Tobago. Hopefully, as I mentioned, January brings cooler waters and rehabilitation to these coral reefs that are impacted. Ladies and gentlemen, do have a good day ahead. Today is a good day to have a good day. I'm Keaton Shaw, and we'll see you again very soon. Bye-bye.
WESN.
This holiday season, bring the magic of Christmas home with WESN's Joy of Christmas. Relive timeless classics from the laughter to the heartwarming moments that make the season unforgettable.
Hey, like the lamp, not the rat, like the lamp, not the rat!
Santa's coming to town! Santa! Oh my God! Woo!